Remember that time you put off buying a house for like a year because interest rates were just crazy? And then they just kept going up?
Yeah,
Yeah, we've all been there. And figuring out how this whole monetary policy thing works, it can feel like you're trying to decipher a foreign language.
absolutely.
But good news, everyone. Today, we're going on that deep dive into the world of monetary policy.
That's right.
And trust me, you don't need an economics degree to understand it. We've got some excerpts from a fantastic Investopedia article to guide us. And these guys, they are like the Shakespeare of finance. They know their stuff.
Yeah, Investopedia is great for this kind of deep dive. They break down even the most complicated financial concepts,
Exactly.
make them easy to grasp.
So let's get down to brass tacks. What is monetary policy?
Yeah.
Essentially, it's how a country manages its money supply to influence the economy.
Right.
Think of it like a control panel for a giant spaceship.
Okay.
Except instead of lasers and warp speed, we're talking about things like interest rates and inflation.
A very fitting analogy.
Okay.
And to stick with that for a moment, just like you wouldn't want your spaceship careening out of control,
Right.
you don't want your economy to be wildly unpredictable either. That's where the Federal Reserve, or the Fed, as it's often called, come in. They're the ones steering the ship using monetary policy to keep things stable.
So they're like the ship's captain,
Exactly.
deciding when to hit the gas or apply the brakes.
Precisely.
I like it.
Their main goal is to create an economic environment where things are running smoothly, without the ship, so to speak, overheating or stalling out.
Yeah.
And a big part of that is controlling inflation.
Okay, so we're not talking about inflating a tire here.
Yeah.
What exactly does inflation mean in the economic sense?
You're right. It's not about tires.
Good.
In simple terms, inflation is a general increase in the prices of goods and services over time. Remember that cup of coffee that used to cost $1 just a few years ago?
Okay, yeah, now it's like $3.
Yeah.
So inflation is basically our money becoming less powerful over time.
Exactly.
Not cool.
And it's not just about your morning coffee getting pricier. As inflation rises, it eats away at the value of your savings.
Right.
That money you're putting aside for a rainy day, it doesn't have the same purchasing power it used to.
Yikes. That's a scary thought. It's like our money is slowly dissolving.
In a way, yes. And high inflation can create a ripple effect throughout the economy.
Whoa, okay.
Businesses have to constantly raise prices. People feel uncertain about the future.
Yeah.
And it can even lead to social unrest.
Okay, so keeping inflation under control, definitely a top priority.
Yeah.
But how does the Fed actually do that? They can't just snap their fingers and make things cheaper, right?
You're right. It's not quite that simple. They have a few powerful tools at their disposal.
Okay.
And one of the most important ones is interest rates. Think of interest rates like the cost of borrowing money.
Okay, so when the Fed raises interest rates, it becomes more expensive for people to take out loans,
Exactly.
like for a mortgage or a car loan.
Exactly. And when borrowing becomes more expensive, people and businesses tend to borrow less,
Makes sense.
which means they have less money to spend. This can help to slow down the economy and, in turn, cool down inflation.
So it's all connected. Higher interest rates, less spending, slower inflation. But our Investopedia article also mentioned something called open market operations. That sounds a bit more complex.
It sounds intimidating, but it's actually a fairly straightforward concept. Essentially, the Fed buys or sells U.S. Treasury bonds in the open market. These bonds are like IOUs issued by the government.
Okay, I'm following so far.
Good.
So how does buying and selling these bonds impact the economy?
Well, imagine the Fed pumping billions of dollars into the economy by purchasing these bonds. This injection of money increases the money supply.
And more money in circulation generally leads to.
Lower interest rates. Remember, it's all about supply and demand. And with lower interest rates, borrowing becomes cheaper, businesses invest more, and consumers spend more freely.
So it's like the Fed is kind of subtly steering the economy just by controlling how much money is out there.
Right.
They make it rain, interest rates drop, people party, or they like pump the brakes, things tighten up, inflation chills out. Fascinating.
That's a great way to put it. And then there's the other side of that coin, selling those bonds. When the Fed sells bonds, they're essentially pulling money out of the economy. This can decrease the money supply and push interest rates up.
It's like a giant financial balancing act.
Yeah.
But the Fed isn't the only player in this game, right? Our Investopedia article also mentioned something about fiscal policy.
You're absolutely right. Monetary policy, which we've been discussing, is just one part of the economic puzzle. Fiscal policy, on the other hand, involves government spending and taxes.
So if the Fed is like the conductor of an orchestra, is the government more like the composer?
Oh?
Setting the overall tone with its budget and tax policies.
I like that analogy. Think of it this way. If the economy is a car, monetary policy is adjusting the speed and steering, while fiscal policy is deciding whether to step on the gas pedal, through increased spending or tax cuts, or to hit the brakes through decreased spending or tax hikes.
And just like driving a car, you need both to work in harmony for a smooth ride.
Precisely. The article highlights the importance of coordination between monetary and fiscal policy, especially during times of economic crisis. Remember the 2008 financial crisis?
How could I forget? It felt like the whole world was on edge.
Right. During that time, the government stepped in with a massive stimulus package, essentially injecting money into the economy to prevent a complete collapse. Simultaneously, the Fed slashed interest rates to near zero, making it as cheap as possible to borrow money.
So it was a two-pronged approach, a bit like a 1-2 punch from a boxer to try and get the economy back on its feet.
Exactly. It was a coordinated effort to stabilize the financial system and restore confidence.
Wow, this deep dive has really opened my eyes to the complexities of managing an economy. It's not just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about people's lives, their jobs, their futures.
Couldn't agree more. And while we've covered a lot of ground today, it's just the tip of the iceberg. Understanding the nuances of monetary policy and how it interacts with fiscal policy can seem daunting, but it's empowering.
Absolutely. It allows us to make more informed decisions about our own finances, our investments, and even our careers. So the next time you hear about the Fed making a move or the government announcing a new budget, you'll have a better understanding of the forces at play. And hey, you might even impress your friends with your newfound knowledge at your next dinner party.
I wouldn't be surprised.
For those who want to dive even deeper, we highly recommend checking out that full Investopedia article. The link is in the show notes. And remember, knowledge is power, especially when it comes to navigating the world of finance.